Hello, and welcome to Nostalgia Marcana. I'm your host, Doug Leaf. Each episode of this podcast, we'll look back on the movies, TV, games, people, and phenomena that we still love talking about all these years later, and ask ourselves why these bits of pop culture still enchant us today. This week, we'll be revisiting...
He rode a blazing saddle, he wore a shining star. His job to offer battle to bad men near and far. He conquered fear and he conquered hate. He turned dark night into day. He made his blazing saddle a torch to light the way. When outlaws ruled the West and fear filled the land, a cry went up for a man with guts to take the West in hand. They needed a man who was brave and true, with justice for all as his aim. Then out of the sun rode a man with a gun, and Bart was his name. Yes, Bart was his name.
The conventional wisdom on Blazing Saddles is that you couldn't make a movie like this anymore. But, you know, having just rewatched it again, my thought is you can, we should, and I think we need to. This movie tackles race in... When I say it tackles race, I mean it tackles race like a football player tackles race. It grabs it and throws it to the ground forcefully. And I'm very, very excited to be talking about this one today, to go back to the world of Mel Brooks again. But to help me do it, I have a partner with me, and I'm really glad he's here. He is a performing member with Freestyle Love Soupreme. That's SOUP. Supreme. You've seen him on the Ruffin show on NBC, and please be sure to seek out and find his awesome short film doc, Race, Revolution, Relativity, and the Confessions of a Time-Traveling Terrorist. Welcome back to the podcast, Tarik Davis.
Happy to be back. Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you too. I'm really glad you're here on this to talk about this subject, because you're just one of the most insightful people I know. And both on like race, history, and media and comedy. It's like you kind of got doctorates in all of the things you need.
You're very good.
So
I do not.
I threw this out to you on like a list of like, hey, here's like a bunch of things we could talk about or whatever you want. But you did end up picking this in the end. So tell me, why it is you were interested in talking about Blazing Saddles today.
I mean, I feel like there are a handful of films that were very formative for me, like at a very early age. And as risque as this movie was, I saw it at a very young age. I saw this I was probably like 5. And a lot of the jokes went over my head. And again, I think I've discussed on your podcast before about like my parents' rule for me in terms of watching media was if I could understand it, I could watch it. And the thing that hooked me for Blazing Saddles was my interpretation, or what I explained to my father, was just like, oh, it's Bugs Bunny. And Bart is Bugs Bunny. And, the racists were Elmer Fudd, and, that's how I made sense of it. And he was like, yeah, that's pretty much it. And so that was kind of this electric, I don't even think I formulated at that young of an age that like Cleavon Little was a black lead and that was revolutionary, but I knew it on some level. But the thing that struck me was that I had never seen someone look like me in that Bugs Bunny. I'm not going to use brute force. I'm not going to use, he uses guile, wit, charisma, likability, and intelligence. And for me, at a very young age, that just opened up a door and I fell in love with the film. watching Cleavon Little's performance. And there's so much around the film that I fell in love with too. Like I fell in love with Mel Brooks, definitely fell in love with Madeline Kahn, and Gene Wilder, who, if you're a child, Gene Wilder as, Willy Wonka. And so I'm like, all right, so this Bugs Bunny-esque like guy is friends with Willy Wonka, and these cowboys are being really silly, and it breaks the form and fourth wall at the end. Like it was as instructive as Sesame Street for me. Like in teaching me like what comedy could be, what film could be, what the freedom of representation could be. That stuck with me, and I truly believe it's one of the like reasons I do what I do. It showed me it was possible, and you have these things reinforced because again, I watch these movies with my family, so seeing them laugh and light up, it's a teaching exercise. And like my dad wasn't stern, but like if he laughed, something to me that meant something was really funny. Same with my mom, like. If they laughed, oh, that's funny. They weren't easy laughers. And so it was a film that brought joy to the house and was instructive at the same time. And as I got older and upon every rewatch, a different layer was uncovered, a different lesson was learned, a different perspective was gained. Like, that hasn't stopped. Like every time I watch the film, when Gene Wilder passed, what was that, in like 2017?
I think earlier, but yeah.
Earlier? I remember this was re-released during, shortly after his passing in theaters. And I went and saw it. And it was one of the best movie experiences in the theater I've ever had. It was beautiful. It was like, wow, this movie is beautiful. Like for all the farce and all the things that people point out, like, talking about race, it's a really beautiful kind of film made by a guy who was a World War II veteran, right? Like it's kind of a serious anti-war film, I guess, is to me more so than a lot of stuff that, a lot of other anti-war films. To me, this is a very anti-war film. This is a film about community. It's a beautiful film.
I mean, it's a film where I think Mel Brooks kind of puts all of himself into it, and everything he brings all of his incredible sense of humor to bear on this subject, but his humanity, right? Like the things he believes in passionately, more so than any of his other films. Yeah. And yeah, I grew up with it sort of. Like my parents would not have let me watch it at 5. And I don't know if that's simply because my parents were probably like, he doesn't need to see a movie with this many N-bombs in it when he's this young. I'm sure they would have had a concern about that. And I've obviously, if that's an issue hearing it, you're going to hear it tonight. Hopefully either of us won't be saying it so much, but it'll be in the clips and stuff. And there's a context for it here, but I'll put a warning up top, but then again, you did sign on to listen to a podcast about Blazing Saddles. So what are you doing here? But for me, like growing up with it, like I definitely grew up with Mel Brooks. I'm Jewish. I wasn't going to not have Mel Brooks in my comedic upbringing, but obviously they started with things like Young Frankenstein that were more digestible. I got Spaceballs, which we covered on the podcast, when I was younger. And this one was interesting. I sort of got some dribs and drabs of it before I saw the whole thing. So, for example, I've talked about this in the show before, but my dad had all these episodes of the Dr. Demento show taped on 8-track tapes that we would like go and listen to for fun. And in there, you would hear "I'm Tired." Like that song was in the mix of things I heard. Yeah. I heard it without context, and it's not as nearly as fun when you can't see Madeline Kahn. And I'm sure at some point my dad pulled out a tape to show me the legendary fart sequence. Yes. So like bits and pieces of it he had let me see. And then at some point, I guess he had decided I was old enough to handle it. And I saw the whole thing, And I remember being really impressed by it. And as a kid, I was a little unclear how to feel about it. I still put it in my top 3 with Producers and Young Frankenstein. But it took a while for this one to kind of matriculate up to the top, only because I had trouble kind of grokking the way the plot kind of unravels at the end. And it took me longer to understand, like, oh, that's obviously it's a deliberate choice. And I didn't fully understand why. And as we go through the movie, we'll get into why that ending totally works. Even though from a storytelling perspective, it's nonsense. So I had remember feeling as a kid, at least, oh, this leaves me unsatisfied in a little way, not getting that that's kind of the poetry and the point of it. But no, I mean, this was an important lesson for me as well, growing up, in terms of like, I had good, solid liberal parents that were going to teach me, tolerance and, to think the right things and believe the right things. But that's not enough to fully develop a sense of racial empathy and, where you fit into the world amongst all people of all races, not just obviously the African Americans that this film focuses on, but it was an important stepping stone and an important teaching tool in getting me to sort of like, that's Mel Brooks' genius. I mean, he does this in The Producers as well. He uses comedy as a way to say, like, all right, we're going to satirize bigotry as a way to make sure you end up on the correct side of it.
Right.
And it's an impressive feat.
It's extremely impressive. And I agree with you 100-fold about this being the film that Mel Brooks puts his full self in. Like almost removing the comedic mask in a certain degree, even though he never does. I feel like a lot of his, and I'm a huge Mel Brooks fan, and for anyone listening, I highly recommend his autobiography. And if you can get it on audiobook, even more. I got it as a gift, All About Me. And he goes through his whole life, and this is a big part of it. But, he's for as funny and silly as he is known to be, again, and, he's gone through a lot. And he's seen a lot. And if I'm allowed, he's a mensch. He's a real mensch, right? Like, he's truly about uplifting the human condition and leaving this place a better place when he's gone, which I hope doesn't happen for a while. Even though I know how old he is, I'd love to meet him. But yeah, reading that after getting that book and, seeing this film again, it's just like, I feel like I have more of an insight into what this film was, as opposed to, I remember having in college, like, it wasn't a debate so much, but I had a friend who was just like, no, Young Frankenstein's his best film, bar none. And I was like, I love Young Frankenstein. I think it's his, as a filmmaker, technically, like, visually, I think that's his best film. But as a filmmaker,
it's probably the most cohesive, and judging it on that kind of a curve.
Right. Like, most cohesive. It's visually beautiful, although this film is also beautiful. And the thing that Mel Brooks, I think, would even admit about himself is like he's a good mimic, right? Like, he's, as a filmmaker, he's doing a John Ford Western for Blazing Saddles. He was mimicking, he watches, High Anxiety. He's mimicking Hitchcock, to the point, even in the book, he thought, like, Hitchcock saw it, and he goes, ask permission. Hey, can I do this? I'm kind of, taking the piss. And Hitchcock loved it. And it was also like, hey, you know what? You're actually a really good director. To mimic me, to mimic all these greats means you must be great yourself. And I think with Frankenstein, like, he loved that world, that genre, visited again with Dracula Dead and loving it. But I think something happened differently when he came into the Western. And I think it became more than just an admiration and a love letter to films of his childhood and his youth. And there was like a mission statement attached. And I think it's also the time period he's in. I think we'd be remiss to not mention Richard Pryor's involvement.
Right.
as one of the writers, and he was originally intended for Bart, but the studios were like, "Oh no," right? And they lucked out because they found an amazing lead in Cleavon Little. But I think there's so many things that like percolate this and maybe challenged Mel and challenged the other writers, challenged Richard, where they hit something that was like, yeah, man, we all may get hanged for this. Like, and to me, that risk is why Blazing Saddles for me becomes Mel Brooks' top film. He's really setting a stick of dynamite and placing it in the foundation, literally. And that's brave as fuck, and he does it. And he does it.
And he was rewarded for it. I mean, the film was a hit, and it was followed up. Both this and Young Frankenstein came out the same year. They're both 50 years old here in 2024, which is a stunning achievement to have like arguably your two best films in 1 year. And I think due in no small part to Gene Wilder, who is just a singular talent.
Yeah.
Who, I mean, what he brings to this film, he's one of the best at like committing to the bit I've ever seen, but he brings so much heart to this. Like you need like, cause Bart has no one in his corner.
No. And
so to have this like staunch ally, even as, kind of drunk and ridiculous as he is, like, it's like he's, if Cleavon Little is not your audience surrogate, then Gene Wilder is. He's the person who says like, yep,
absolutely,
I'm ride or die with this guy.
Yeah, and that it's a great device, right? It's a great device as a filmmaker who's risking, all right, it's, in film, which is risk averse anyway, right? And I guess we'll probably get to this conversation maybe later when you alluded in your opening about could this film get made today? And, we know how risk averse Hollywood is. I imagine it was risk averse then. And they were like, so who's the lead of this film? And I know, from what I understand from the book, Gene Wilder came in like last minute. I think they had cast someone else as the Waco Kid, a more established Western actor who was older. And I think there were alcohol problems and health issues. And Gene Wilder came in, and I agree with you. I think it really saves the film, and I think Gene Wilder plays it perfectly. And one of the things that like I always admire about Gene Wilder is there aren't too many people I can see. There aren't too many actors today. Gene Wilder can be suave. Gene Wilder can be silly. Gene Wilder can be neurotic and pathetic. Gene Wilder can be in control and strong, and like the layers and the levels that Gene Wilder hits as the Waco Kid. And like when we're first introduced to him, and it also leads to my favorite, I would say it's my favorite scene in the film. It's not the funniest scene, but after Bart is kind of told to, up yours N-word, right, by the sweet old lady. And he goes back, the sheriff's office defeated, and Gene Wilder's there comforting him. And apparently the scene is all improvised. And, these people are the salt of the earth, and like, it's really strange.
That's one of the best lines in the movie. Tell me that's improvised?
Yeah, it was improvised. And Cleavon Little's laugh is genuine because he wasn't expecting Gene Wilder to say that, morons. And he breaks out laughing. And that's the friendship. But it's such a revolutionary image for the time of this white man consoling this black man and being on his side of like, yeah, man, they were racist idiots. They're morons. But don't worry about them. I got your back. That's look, it's just I'm sure people may be like, if who's not seen the film or if that feels like a anachronistic vibe with this particular time, but back then, to me, still, it's a very powerful moment.
Yeah, it really kind of encapsulates it's us against them kind of feeling in the movie. But I'm kind of heartened to see that to some degree Hollywood has started to dip at least a little bit of a toe back into these waters. I think, Tropic Thunder plays with this dynamite a little bit, for better for worse. We've just recently got American Fiction, and you've got the American Society of Magical Negro. So you're starting to get these films that are willing to take a satirical look at race. But what sets this one apart, one, is not only just the ferocity of the satire, but that you've married it with the other half of this film, which is, for all of the importance of the racial stuff in this film, you can't ignore that it's also a live action Looney Tunes cartoon.
Right.
And there is some crazy stuff in here that's totally, has nothing to do with the race parts of the movie. It's just, wildly silly. And there's something transgressive about the idea of like, oh no, we're going to give you this societal satire, but we're literally going to play Looney Tunes music and like punch a horse in the face and fart for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And somehow that's all going to be in the same movie.
Yeah. Mongo love candy.
Right.
Yeah, it's a, I mean, and again, it gets in like, we should wait until we get there, but I also tie that ending with that Looney Tunes, like everything is up for grabs. When Mel Brooks turns around and, it says the Gov, under his, the back of his jacket, or people get hit over the head with, huge cast iron shovels, get right back up, like it's, like that logic for me, again, when I was like made sense. I was like, oh yeah, everyone's a cartoon. Great. Love it. I'm with it. And I think a difference today, and I think we are dipping our toe, but I would say tentatively.
Oh yeah.
I would
definitely tentatively.
I want to be optimistic about it, but I do think something I see right now that this film did, right? Like, if you look at the writers, so it's a whole writer's room, right? You got Mel Brooks, Norman Steinberg, Andrew Bergman, Richard Pryor, Alan Uger. And Mel Brooks at the time was, he had producers. I'm not sure. Maybe which one came out first.
It's the 12 Chairs is the other one.
12 Chairs,
before this.
Producers. And did Young Frankenstein come out after this?
Yeah, I believe the order is Producers, 12 Chairs, Blazing Saddles, then Young Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And 12 Chairs was not a big splash, not well received particularly.
Yeah.
But Producers, won him an Oscar, so at least he had that.
He had that. I still think like around this time, he's a new filmmaker.
Right.
I don't want to say unproven, but they're still like, all right, well, what can you do? And Mel cut his teeth doing shows and stand up.
2,000-Year-Old Man.
2,000-Year-Old Man. And so this was, Pryor is a young, independent, wild comic. And, it wasn't, I'm just thinking about like the succession of stand-up comics and language in the United States. And like Lenny Bruce, I think, got arrested in the early 60s for saying schmuck, right?
I think so.
And so this is 10 years later. So the world is still, it's gone through a lot of changes, but it's still like, this is still a hard risk to do this movie. And I feel like today I saw American Fiction and I really enjoyed it. I just got the book. I haven't opened it yet. But to me, I'm watching this film and I'm like, it's so interesting that it's revolutionary, that the premise of the film is that it's revolutionary, that these, that Black people still have to kind of put on blackface in a sense, right? Even though it's not literal blackface, a type of blackface to get accepted, right? To be considered Black, to have our point of view put across. And I think the threshold that we still that audiences and maybe artists are still scared to cross is, hey, can you accept my blackness on my terms and my humanity on my terms that is also attached to it, right? And I think what's interesting about this was, this film, the majority of the writers are right, but not all of them. The lead is black. The director is white. But the humanity is still all out there. That wasn't in question. And so when I hear people say, you couldn't make this movie today, to me it's not even like the N-words, or the fart scenes. It's there's not... The first thing we are told about Bart is that he is not the stereotype you think he is, right? He's literally a slave who breaks down and starts singing Count Basie. I remember that I would sing that song when I was a kid, because I thought it was so funny. And I don't even know if I got all the layers until later, but the idea that, yeah, you expect swing low and it's this sophisticated Duke Ellington-esque, like, this guy isn't, like, none of the stereotypes attached to him fit. He's just a funny human guy. It's very likable. And the fact that we're still making movies to be like, hey, can't we just be funny, likable? I think I'm not smart enough to figure out what it is, but I think that's an interesting commentary. Like, I think that's an interesting situation that we are some almost 50 years later still grappling with. Hey, I can only say as an actor and writer myself, who is black, my biggest struggles in this business has been that. Like, hey, which box do you fit in? I don't know. I try to be a well-rounded individual and not really fit myself in four corners, and that being revolutionary. Does that make sense? I don't know. I'm rambling a little bit.
No, I think it makes perfect sense. Because that is what makes Bart's character and the movie ultimately, again, revolutionary. As you said, it's not just that, hey, they say the N-word 200 times, and it's not only that they've married what in theory you would expect to be maybe a more lofty satire with the more base Looney Tunes stuff. The most transgressive element in it is arguably that Bart is the smartest guy in any room he's in and deserves to be taken on his own terms and not treated like crap. Like that, right. Somehow that is the most, revolutionary concept in it. And of course, Mel Brooks's empathetic view is obviously that should not be the case. Right. And from that is the wellspring of kind of all of the satire that is the engine that makes this thing go.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just an incredibly heartening movie because of that, because there's so much goodwill just oozing out of every part of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably as good an intro as any to sort of start talking about the details of the movie itself. So we open up with this, burning logo and this song that Mel Brooks wrote. And already it's like, you think you're in kind of, just a standard Western from the look and sound of it. But if you listen to the lyrics a little more carefully, there's stuff about, first of all, literally his ass is on fire. He's riding a blazing saddle.
Yeah.
And he turns dark night into day. We're taking black things and turning them white.
Yeah.
There's stuff in here that's like worth kind of noticing as you sort of let this wash over you as we move into the world of Westerns.
Yeah. And I don't know. I'm sure I could do a quick internet search, but that song, the singer who sung that song, I have to find out. But the approach was like, cause he sang all these really iconic songs for other like really famous Westerns. And so even though the lyrics are satirical, Mel's, I think, instruction and the guy, like he just sang it like, if you don't pay attention to the lyrics, you're like, this is just a kick-ass, like, really emotional, really just, like, cinematic. The guy is belting out these lyrics, and it takes it to a different level. It's just like, because he's singing his heart out and putting emotion and feeling in every line and every lyric, but it's ridiculous. And it's another like perfect blending. It's just like they really captured lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, and I think this really fits some of Mel Brooks's best parodies, which is when he, it's when you really try as hard as you can to mimic the thing for real. It works because, as you said, the singer is singing it as if it wasn't a parody.
Yeah.
Right?
The singer's name was Frankie Lane, by the way.
That's right. And I know the composer on this movie is John Morris, who worked with Mel on many of his films, including, as we just talked about a few months ago, Spaceballs. Mm-hmm. Same composer.
Yeah.
So we get this dolly shot of a railroad, and we've got famous Western actor Slim Pickens is kind of in charge of this crew. And he is, right away we get into straight up racism because this poor Chinese guy working on the railroad just passes out.
Yeah.
And he says, "Doc, that slur for napping."
Yeah.
But then he wants everybody to, all the black folks who are working on this to sing, like they're supposed to do. And as you said, this is the point where Cleavon Little, we meet him and he sings, "I get a kick out of you."
Yeah.
Now come on, boys. Where's your spirit? I don't hear no singing. When you was slaves, you sang like birds. Come on, how about a good old nigger work song?
I get no kick from champagne. Mere alcohol doesn't thrill me at all. So tell me, why should it be true that I get a belt out of you? Some get a kick from cocaine.
Hold it! What the hell is that shit? I'm in a song. A real song. Something like, swing low, sweet chariot.
Swing low, chariot.
Don't know that one, huh? Well, how about the Camptown Ladies?
The Camptown Ladies.
The Camptown Ladies. Oh, you know. The Camptown Ladies sing this song, doo-dah, doo-dah. The Camptown racetrack 5 miles long, all the doo-dah day.
I remember being in elementary school and just like no one getting what that song was.
I certainly didn't know the Great American Songbook as well the first time I saw that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But yeah, it's a great Slim Pickens. If you've ever seen Dr. Strangelove or How I Learned to Stop Worrying, I Love the Bomb and Stop Worrying. I
think that's right. Yeah.
Slim Pickens is the cowboy who rolled the nuke down to its target, like a cowboy.
Yep, and was the star of a million westerns.
Yeah,
so like he's right at home here. He's a great casting choice to bring some of that like authentic western movie stuff here.
Yeah,
and he's great because he's sort of like they're cruel, but in a way that's like just cartoonish enough.
Yeah.
So it's not like, like Django Unchained or something like really hideous. It's like there's something kind of like you can sort of just laugh at how stupid they are without having it to be actually, fearsome.
Yeah. It's such a thin line. Like I imagine, I think another thing I'm realizing is, Westerns in the 70s starting to go out of style. But we're still close to it in that decade where, like, again, you get these veterans, and the thing to me that amazes me is it's like how strong their comedic chops are. You know, like everyone, I really wish could be a fly on the wall on that set of like everyone seemed to get Mel's humor and his timing. Like the casting is perfect. And so for these Western veterans to be on for what it feels like, turn on a dime and just like know that balance between like, yeah, I'm playing a racist, but I'm an idiot, you know, like, and you're still going to kind of like me. That is a tightrope walk.
Yeah. And they all do that throughout this movie. All of the bigots we meet in this movie really ride this razor's edge between like, we have to, you know, get that they're bigots for the satire to work, but they can't be so awful that they kind of drag the tone of the movie down to where it's not funny anymore.
Yeah.
Like it's really impressive. So yeah, they end the scene just like flapping away, singing Camptown Ladies, which is really funny.
Burton Gilliam is another one of those Western veterans, and he's the one just like he's really toothy smile. You would see him in a lot of Westerns. But again, plays it perfectly. You know, yeah, anyway, continue.
Yeah. No, so they're building a railroad here, and they get word that there's quicksand along the line. So they decide we got to send two scouts to go check out the quicksand. So they pick Cleavon Little, and I'm blanking on the other character's name right now, but they send him out to look, in their one of those push carts. I forget what they're called. And I love that, like, again, like played for like Looney Tunes cartoons,
yes,
like, literal like quicksand Looney Tune shit.
Yeah,
because they're shooting them from like kind of the waist up, and suddenly they're kind of not moving anymore, and then you realize they're sinking into the quicksand.
Yeah,
and Taggart is the character's name, goes to you think he's going to rescue them, but they're like, oh no, we almost lost a $900 or $400 handcart, which, by the way, I looked up, that's about $9,400 today.
Yes. Yeah, another really funny scene. I think the other character's name was Charlie.
Charlie. Yeah, I see it in my notes now. Yeah.
And the kind of, to me, that's if I could imagine playing that scene, if I were still teaching and I played that scene for my students, I could hear the like, of course, like that, the encapsulation of white gaze, how they see us, Black worth, done perfectly in one joke of like this Looney Tunes joke. The cart is worth more than these two human lives.
Yeah, I mean, in sketch terms, we would talk about this as a game. Yeah. You know, like the game, unfortunately, is racism in America.
Right.
But in terms of like the math of a sketch, like, yes, of course, that is how you play this. Yeah, they're not there to rescue Bart and Charlie. They're there to save this expensive piece of equipment.
Yeah. I love the scene before, though, as they are sinking. Are we sinking? Or is the earth rising?
Yep.
It's such a...
Yeah, again, like they somehow managed to get in all of the Looney Tunes shit, like woven in between all of the racial comedy stuff, and it's just like it's just peanut butter and jelly somehow. Like it works together.
Really does.
So Bart's foot is on the rail, so he under the sand, so he's not going to sink any further, and he manages to get him and Charlie to safety. And they give Bart a shovel, which he then uses to just whack Taggart. And again, like cartoon violence.
Yeah, we get a good kabong. Like, yeah, you get a good, nice sound effect with it.
Tell him I said ow.
Ow, gotcha.
So from here we cut to our primary antagonist, which is Hedley Lamarr, the Attorney General. And this actor, gosh, I'm blanking on his name, but he's in a bunch of Mel Brooks stuff now.
Harvey Korman.
Thank you, Harvey Korman. Yeah, I know he's in High Anxiety.
Yes.
And he's great in it. So Taggart comes to visit him and says, hey, we're having a problem with the railroad. We can move it over, but it's got to go through this town called Rock Ridge. So they're going to have to essentially demolish this town to build the railroad.
And so the railroad has got to go through Rock Ridge.
Rock Ridge, splendid.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Rock Ridge. Rock Ridge.
Be still, Taggart, be still.
Yes, sir.
My mind is aglow with whirling, transient nodes of thought, careening through a cosmic vapor of invention.
Ditto.
Ditto? Ditto, you provincial putz?
I'm sorry, sir.
Plan. Need a plan.
What in the hell was that? Hey!
Boris, we can't hear ourselves think.
How sorry, your worship, but I've got 2 men at home, sick with the flu, and it's utter chaos down here. I'll try to keep it quiet as possible, but as you can see, this one is a doozy.
Yes, the Dr. Gillespie killings. Well, do your best. Now, let's see. Where were we?
Oh, Rock Ridge.
Rock Ridge. Yes, when that railroad goes through Rock Ridge, that land will be worth millions. And I want it.
And I love how, like, Headley, they kind of let him run wild with vocabulary words. Like, that's kind of his thing.
Yeah.
This cosmic vapor of intention and stuff is really good. And amidst all this, then again, we go to like this weird, just like this cartoon shit just exists in this world because they go to talk to Boris the Hangman.
Yeah.
Who's just this medieval, oh, sorry, sir, I can't fit you in until Tuesday. Like, this character exists in the same world as everybody else.
And he makes a comeback in Robin Hood Men in Tights. Mm-hmm. It's a brilliant, bold choice. But I always laugh because I'm like, I don't know who this actor is, but he must have just like, it's got to be someone Mel knows who's just funny as shit. Yo, do the hangman thing. Yes, sir.
And he even does this weird like movement. I can't describe this because it's a podcast, but he kind of like shuffles to the left and like swings his arms. It's almost the half of the Thriller move. And it's just like, what is that? It's just so out of left field and weird. And again, like, you need this to make everything else fit into place somehow. Like, doing this reassures the audience of like, okay, we're in a silly mood. You will accept what we're spoon feeding you on the political side.
Yeah, and that guy gets a little scene. You know, like he's hanging a horse and the rider, right? Like, and he loves his job. Like, it's I don't want this to turn into an indictment of films today because I could very easily do that. But I think one of the things with a lot of films today is things are very economic. And, you know, from every aspect of, you know, film, and like, it's one of the things again, don't want to get on a soapbox, but I despise the most because I watch a lot of old films, and one of the things I love are those, you know, I was just watching Strangers on a Train. Hitchcock, and like, you know, towards the climax of that scene, when the merry-go-round is going out of control, this old man comes out of the crowd, this old carny, because he's like, yeah, I know how to turn it off. And it just like starts crawling on all fours slowly as the machine goes crazy. And it's this character we haven't met. We don't know. This old man with a beard who now we are really invested in because he has to save the day. And I feel like a script today, that guy would be like, why do we need him? Cut him and like have the hero do it. Why do we need this strange medieval executioner character given a whole scene? Because it adds flavor to the movie, right? And like,
yeah, it's hard to like do the mental calculus on this stuff. And
right,
like, if I was given the script, I don't know that I would have the the brains to recognize this stuff needs to stay in either. My first instinct would be, oh yeah, this is out of left field, or this doesn't go anywhere, cut it. We did an episode not that long ago about The Big Lebowski, put a pin in that for a minute. But we talked about like John Turturro's character in that movie. Like, whole thing has nothing to do with anything.
Right.
But it's one of the funniest things in the movie. And it's like it's like it only happens because the Coen brothers had the cachet to probably go, no, John Turturro and this weird thing stays in the movie.
Right.
And it's really hard to explain to somebody why it needs to be there, even if it technically goes nowhere.
Right. And I think for me, if I had to pull some kind of explanation out of my ass would be, it's the world. It's like, if a film is an amusement park, you need someone in a Mickey Mouse suit just to get the kids to, like, you need the houses to look weird. You need to get the audience to understand this and like you said, oh, this is a really silly movie. And it gets me in the world. It gets me in this, oh, right, it's not just these main characters. There's a bigger world outside of this. And I wish we would go back to that.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I think the confidence on display here from Mel and his team is what makes this work. So to keep this moving, we Headley's plan is they're trying to figure out what to do to get people off of the land to scare them away. I like Taggart says we should kill the firstborn male child. Too Jewish, but they want to do something to scare everybody away. And we transition to Rockridge. We get this kind of cute little song about the peaceful town called Rockridge.
Yes.
The town saloon was always lively, but never nasty or obscene. Behind the bar stood Adel Johnson. He always kept things nice and clean. And all at once the trouble started. A pack of murderers and thieves. Like swarms of locusts they descended. Their aim to make the town complete.
Oh, shit! Well, that's the end of this suit.
Oh! Ow! Have you ever seen such cruelty? Oh! Oh! Ow! Oh!
Now it's a time of great decision. Are we to stay or up and quit? There's no avoiding this conclusion. Our town is turning into shit.
Be seated.
And it is as provincial as can be. There's cows in the saloon. We hear about Anal Johnson, who keeps things nice and clean.
Yeah.
Don't know why his name is Anal. It's really weird. It's just like visually there. Like they never say it out loud, I don't think. It's just like on the sign.
Yeah.
And a posse comes into town and just runs rampant throughout the town. And there's some really crazy just visual stuff in here. They're punching that old lady in the stomach. I just love her like fourth wall break.
Yes.
Have you ever seen such cruelty?
Pow, pow. And yeah, they just keep it's so funny. The guy getting shot and removing his hat and having the bullet line there, and like the other guy who's taking a bath or a shower, and he's completely covered in foam, and they remove the outhouse shower, and it's just like, oh, this is so zany.
Yeah.
And also sets up like, these are our victims we're going to have to root for, which I think is a really great turn of it's like, oh, the common folk, right? Yeah, well,
the morons.
The morons, we're going to meet them.
Well, that's kind of the magic trick of the movie, is that these characters, that what they're telling us, these characters are going to start off bigoted and opposed to Bart at every turn, and eventually will come to revere him and accept him, right? That's the arc we're supposed to be on.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how they transition from like the song is being sung, and then they're in church and they're just singing about how their town is turning into shit. Just a great transition.
Yeah.
And now everyone in the town who is named Johnson gets up to say their piece. We get the authentic frontier gibberish, one of my favorite jokes in the movie. just goofy, trope parody stuff.
Sheriff murdered, crops burned, stores looted, people stampeded, and cattle raped. Now the time has come to act, and act fast. I'm leaving.
Hey, you get back here, you pants. Can they stay to winter? Ain't no way that nobody's gonna leave this town. Hell, I was born here, and I was raised here, and dadgummit, I'm gonna die here. And no sidewinding, bushwhacking, hornswoggling, crocker is gonna roll my biscuit cutter.
Now, who can argue with that?
Ruffin!
I think we're all indebted to Gabby Johnson for clearly stating what needed to be said. I'm particularly glad that these lovely children were here today to hear that speech. Not only was it authentic frontier gibberish, it expressed a courage little seen in this day and age.
And then we get the inspiring speech from Olsen Johnson, who is, as I mentioned before, the Big Lebowski, the same actor.
David Huddleston.
Yep, he's great. And the plan is they've got to get a new sheriff, so they're going to ask the governor to replace the sheriff that was assumedly killed during the zaniness off screen somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're off. Now we get to meet Mel Brooks as Governor Lepidamine. This is great. Like he's basically the same character he will eventually be in Spaceballs.
Yeah.
Like this is just him as like, I am the leader,
yeah,
and I am utterly unscrupulous, like to an amazing degree.
Yeah. It took me, I remember seeing that and being like, what is a parapet? Like, I'm still just, what's a parapet? But yeah, I love like Hetty being the villain, but this politician, like it's a very slick move of just like, yeah, no, but politics is still the oil that has to grease the machine. And these guys, unscrupulous is a great word. And it's I know like for people who play the role-playing games, there's I don't know what it's called, but like there's like lawful evil, lawful good. You know what I mean? Chaotic.
The moral alignment.
Moral alignment.
That on our old show, yeah.
Moral alignment. And yeah, I've always been like, yeah, what is the moral alignment of Governor Lepidamine, right? Like he
would be neutral evil.
Right.
Because he is either lawful evil or neutral evil, which would more neutral in that he doesn't care so much about law and order, he cares about himself.
Right.
So generally your villains who, so like Darth Vader would be lawful evil. Like he wants to impose an order that is evil. This guy's more neutral. He wants to he's out for himself. And then the other would be chaotic evil. And that's like the Joker.
The Joker, right.
It's wild. Yeah.
Right.
Anarchy. Yeah. But like the satire of like government here, it's like, it's on the nose and it's real obvious, but it's also very funny that, his ineptitude, they talk about snatching 200 acres of native land for this box of paddle balls, which he cannot do and declares they're defective.
Yeah.
That stuff.
And Harvey Korman just easily, right. I love
we got to protect our phony baloney jobs.
Yeah.
That stuff.
Anything else?
Just this urgent telegram from Rockridge that arrived last Friday.
Last Friday? Read it. You wild bitch.
Sheriff murdered, church meeting bombed, reign of terror must cease. Send your sheriff immediately.
Holy underwear! Sheriff murdered, innocent women and children blown to bits? We've got to protect our phony baloney job, gentlemen. We must do something about this immediately. Immediately. Harumph, 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 harumph. I didn't get a harumph out of that guy.
Give the governor harumph.
Harumph? You watch your ass.
Gentlemen, please rest your sphincters.
Well put.
Thank you very much, sir. As Attorney General, I can assure you that a suitable sheriff will be found to restore the peace in Rock Ridge. Meeting is adjourned. Oh, I am sorry, sir. I didn't mean to overstep my bounds. You say that.
What?
Meeting is adjourned.
It is?
No, you say that, Governor.
What?
Meeting is adjourned.
It is?
Here, play around with this for a while.
Oh,
Governor.
thank you, Hetty.
No, it's Headley.
It is? Why don't you give these out to some of the boys in lieu of pay? Here you go, Frankie, Johnny, Patsy, Kelly, and one for Miss Stein, my beloved secretary. Play with these, boys, in lieu of other things. This friggin' thing is warped. Why do I always get a warped one?
I love I didn't get a harumph out of that guy, you know? But I think the reason I bring up that, I think neutral evil is the thing that I find familiar and insidious at the same time is, when they bring in Bart, don't you know he's a nit, right? Like, he stops short from saying it. He's the height of power, but he knows it's that politeness, the mask that he wears to send this guy to his supposed death. That removal that power gets to have. I'm not like, Taggart. I'm not doing it, I'm not like physically doing it, and I had that removal, but you're just as bad, if not worse.
Oh yeah, I mean, we skipped there's the moment where he decides he's gonna bring in Bart because he figures he will be offensive enough to Rockridge they'll drive him out of town. It'll help their plan. And then he goes back and he has that can't you see that man is a nit. What I love about that is they double down on it in a way that's really silly, where he goes like, that man is a nit. Or I forget what he says, but like he just says nit.
Yeah.
It's like a way of like, it's really stupid. But then Headley convinces him by telling him, oh, you'll get a cabinet post because you're revolutionary. You're appointing a black sheriff. You're going to have this feather in your cap.
Right. It's in vogue, right? To help only so much. Like,
it's a token.
It's a token. He'll be the one. There'll not be a second, right?
Right.
Which for a Hollywood film, again, is a huge statement. And hats off to Mel Brooks for playing, not only making the movie, but playing that part.
Right. And a few more, as we'll get to in the movie. Which this is his first time. I can't remember if he's in the 12 Chairs or not. I've only seen it once. But he's only, he has a tiny cameo in the producers. He's not in it at all. So it's, a big thing to put himself in a major role here. I think that's pretty cool.
It's a great point. Yeah, I don't think, he's not in Young Frankenstein. I don't believe. Is he?
Not at all. I think he's the sound of a wolf howling or something in the mix. That's all he does is to put himself in the movie. And after that, he's off and running a little more.
Yeah, I think he talked about in the book like how this. I forget why. I'm sure, and I forget why he was in the film. I feel like it was another happy accident, but I could be mistaken. But I do remember him talking about like. When he was in the film, it became a thing where people also not just associated him as the filmmaker, but like, but you're also in the films. Like, you and your comedy, you are the art, almost. And
right.
It's overused at this point, but it's huge. It's a huge move.
Yeah. It is a power move to say, like, I'm going to play this part and crush it, by the way. I mean, do what I would do on Sid Caesar and just, destroy.
Right.
Because Mel Brooks, like, as much as we kind of applaud his writing, like, one of the quickest improvisational minds in the world.
Absolutely.
And the proof is The 2,000-Year-Old Man, which was, like, a bit that he and Carl Reiner used to do at parties where Carl Reiner would interview him and Mel Brooks would just adopt a character like you would in an improv scene and get interviewed. And just as someone who, you and I have both done improv, like you watch that and go like, I can't begin to approach that level of skill. It's it's extraordinary.
Yeah, no, it's a, I'm always in awe of joke writers, right? Like, but I know people who are meticulous and like I have to go in a room and write. And I know some improvisers who are very good and freestylers, right? Like, I know freestylers who like, man, as a freestyler myself, I'm still in awe of, I think of Wayne Brady, who like, you just came up with a verse, a bridge, like, and then to land your couplet, like, not just on a rhyme, but on a punchline, like a strong punchline. I've done it a handful of times, but it's no easy feat. And I've seen like guys like Wayne Brady, like make it look like they're drinking water. And I would put Mel Brooks. I've heard his 1,000-Year-Old Man bits, and he talks about them in the book. And like, some of those responses, he was just like, it was just off the cuff. And I'm like, that's the perfect joke. You crafted the perfect joke out of thin air, consistently. Some of us have done it like, we've played in the league. We've had a home run or two, but for those who do it consistently, that's a thing.
Yeah, I said this on the Spaceballs podcast, but I think there is an argument to be made. If you're going to try and think of who was the single funniest human to have ever lived, you could make a fair argument that it's Mel Brooks. Like just watching his genius, it's just incredible. All right, so Bart is wearing his snazzy clothes. He kind of surveys the land and rides out right past the orchestra that is playing him on, led by Count Basie, I believe is the orchestra head, right? He high fives him, which is great. Again, an awesome fourth wall break that the orchestra is there.
Yeah.
And he rides in towards Rock Ridge, where they're all waiting to give him a Laurel and Hardy handshake. And once again, we get the first third of the N-word as old prospector guy is trying to scream that the sheriff is a nigger and gets cut off by the bell.
The sheriff's coming!
Ring out the church bells!
Strike up the band! Hey, the sheriff is a nick.
What did he say? The sheriff is near.
No, God blame it, dang blame. The sheriff is a nick. As chairman of the Welcoming Committee, it is my privilege to extend a laurel and hearty handshake to our new nigger.
And like the way this like celebration turns to just silence as they watch him ride in, followed by one of my favorite lines in the movie as he goes to give his speech.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Oh, fucking, and the scream that is elicited just as he's about to pull out his speech.
It's such a brilliant joke. It's such a brilliant joke. Of course, the first thing that people are afraid of is the black man's sexuality, right? Like, his implied sexuality, not even his he's pulling out a parchment. But people think, again, it's that hanging, that sort of I don't even know if that's the correct term, sort of Damocles, but like what we think, everyone's expectation about who this guy is and what he is about.
And the town too. I mean, right. We're supposed to, you know, that this is going to lose any goodwill we had for the town coming up to this point.
Right.
And they try and they try and play it off like, gee, they mean well, they're just ignorant. And I think they need that because you're never going to redeem this town in the movie without that.
No.
You know, some good faith on their part.
Yeah.
But then I love this because this feels like this is one of the most inspired, crazy things in the movie because like he's trying to read his speech. We hear like guns being cocked, right? They're going to kill him. And it's like, well, how is he going to get out of this mess? The way he gets out of it is to pull a gun to his own head and hold himself hostage.
Excuse me while I whip this out. By the power vested in me by the Honorable William J. LaPetitmain, I hereby assume the duties of the office of sheriff in and for the township of Rockridge.
Gentlemen, let us not allow anger to rule the day. As your spiritual leader, I implore you to pay heed to this good book and what it has to say. Son, you're on your own.
Hold it. The next man makes a move, the nigger gets it.
Hold it, man. He's not bluffing.
Listen to him, man. He's just crazy enough to do it.
Drop it, or I swear I'll blow this nigger's head all over this town.
Oh, Lordy Lord, he's desperate. Do what he say. Do what he say.
Isn't anybody going to help that poor man?
Hush, Harriet. That's a sure way to get him killed.
Oh, help me, help me, help me. Somebody help me, help me, help me, help me.
Shut up.
Oh, baby, you are so talented, and they are so dumb.
This whole scene of him, like, you know, he's gonna. I'll pull the trigger. I'll do it. I swear. Oh God, he's gonna do it.
Help me! Help me! Help me!
Yeah. This whole back and forth thing, like, this is one of those things where you think of like in a writer's room, like if you're trying to like, well, how do we get our way out of this? Right? We've written ourselves into a corner. This is so fucking Looney Tunes, and it only works because of all the Looney Tunes stuff we've done up to this point, because it is completely illogical cartoon shit.
Yeah. My favorite is. I forget the actress's name, but I think she was married to Dom DeLuise. But she was, you know, racist 1 minute ago. Mrs. DeLuise, yeah. She was racist 1 minute ago. And then when he puts the gun in his head, she goes, isn't anyone going to help that poor man? It's such a funny, and he takes himself off the stage with the gun to his head and, you know, sequesters himself in like this barn and breaks the fourth wall, and he was like, you know, I am so smart and they are so dumb. And, you know, it's not even a joke. It's just a state of facts, but it's so funny. Because you've gone so big in the scene prior, you don't really need to land the joke now. It can literally just be like, they're dumb. Right? And it's really funny.
Again, just the mind that would come up with this whole routine, right? As the solution to how do we get Bart out of this pickle is just I don't know which of the team came up with this, but
that may have been
inspired.
I know that may have been a prior moment. I know there are two moments. I know there's definitively a prior moment we haven't gotten to yet that he wrote, and they cut the punchline of the joke. We'll get there, but. I feel like this may have been in the book. Mel Brooks may have covered that, like the idea of Bart putting the gun to his own head was prior.
Right.
It feels like prior, but you know, I could be completely wrong.
Yeah, it also feels like Mel Brooks too. It's hard to know. You know, it's,
Sure.
Whoever the genius is, they get all the points.
Right.
So we get a brief scene of the town are meeting about what to do. They're going to complain to the governor and tell him he's the leading asshole in the state for what he's done. And we go back to Bart. He's putting up posters and trying to acclimate to his new job. And we meet Gene Wilder as the Waco Kid, who is very drunk and very puzzled.
Yeah.
Doo-dar, doo-dar, the Camp Town racetrack 5 miles long. Oh, the doo-dar day.
Drunk and number 2 must be awake.
Are we awake?
We're not sure. Are we black?
Yes, we are.
Then we're awake. But we're very puzzled. I think I'd better straighten myself out.
Need any help?
Oh, all I can get.
Are we black? Yes, we are. Yeah.
We are awake, but we are very puzzled.
I am your guest. You are my guest. I am your host. What are your pleasures? What do you like to do? Play chess.
I like to play chess and screw.
Let's play chess.
Yeah.
It's I mean, in 2 seconds you fall in love with our main characters, right? It's and we get to find out about both of them. Like, you know, how did these two, you know, what's a dazzling urbanite like yourself doing in a rustic setting like this? Well, if you must pry, I can do the line. I must, right? Like, back in 56, and like, you know, and then we get the second Mel Brooks cameo, right?
We're getting there, yeah. Before we get to the flashback, I just wanted to mention a couple other things in this scene, this first meeting. One, when they do play chess, Bart checkmates Jim.
Oh, that's right.
That's Gene Wilder's name. As Jim, the Waco Kid. We get the story about why he's called the Waco Kid. It's or why he hung up his spurs, I should say.
Yeah.
But we also find out he has a superpower. He's the fastest hands in the West. And I love how this way he demonstrates it, which is like he has the chess piece. And he's like, well, just snatch it. And he closes his hands around it and it's gone. And somehow Jim is holding it. And he's like, 10 feet away. Like, it's impossible.
Yeah.
It's very funny. And he must have killed more men than Cecil B. DeMille. I also like that.
That's a very funny line that I've always, like, when I was a kid, I did not understand it.
No, nor I. I mean,
it's just
how many kids know who Cecil B. DeMille is?
Right. But yeah, I love that story. And then the little shit shot me in the ass, right? Like, and I crawled in a bottle and I've been there ever since. And only Gene Wilder can tell. It's a very simple story, but he tells it with such, like, humor. Again, tightrope walk. Like, how do I make this sad story about an alcoholic seem sad, but also really funny?
He's one of those actors that, like, you watch this today. It's like Willy Wonka is a good example of this too, where he is able to ride, like, the gear shift of his acting choices so carefully as he just masters kind of tone and just shifting ever so slightly, but like everything is unbelievably precise with him. It's really cool to watch. But now we get to that flashback you were talking about where Bart and his family are crossing in a wagon train, sort of, bringing up the rear. And they are set upon by the Sioux Nation, which is, of course, led by Chief Mel Brooks, doing an incredibly Yiddish accent as the Sioux chief.
Schwarzes. No, seid nicht Meshuggah. Laws im Gain! Kappa walk. It's all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be gesund. Take off. As big as Zane and deine Leben? They darker than us. Woof!
Again, like just kind of a funny diversion. Like it doesn't, I don't think this says much for the entire movie, but it's just a funny excuse for a great bit.
It's a great bit. And, you brought up Tropic Thunder earlier, and, Tropic Thunder has blackface. This has, red face. But, and I'm diametrically opposed to both. But if I were to have to make two exceptions, a blackface, I would go Tropic Thunder. A red face, I would go Blazing Saddles, because it's
the intentionality behind it,
right?
It's to a purpose. It's not just to make. The point is not to make fun of that person's race. It's to use that as a fulcrum to make fun of racism itself, right? So I think you get a pass.
Yeah, it makes fun of racism.
I
think it also makes fun of the institution of Westerns and whiteface, right? Or redface, and like casting white actors. And it's just like, all right, well, if you're going to do that, here's this Brooklyn, Williamsburg Jewish actor who's not changing, he's speaking full on Yiddish. And so do all the other tribesmen, right? Like, it's a really smart joke. It's a really... Especially, and then to use that to have them encounter this black family.
And then he sort of makes this joke that speaks to like sort of a hierarchy of minorities, right? Because he's like, oh, Schwarzes, they're darker than we are.
Right.
Right. So like, oh, there is a minority that must be below us because they're darker than us. And that is kind of an interesting thing to introduce. They don't do a whole lot with it, but I think it's still it's more mortar for the bricks that make up this movie.
But it says a lot. It's the colorism is real, and the stigma of black skin coming in being worse than the stigma of red skin. Yeah, it's there's a lot that this country still needs to unpack. It's starting a small conversation that I don't think has been fully picked up.
But then again, with the kind of genius of how this movie masters tone, like we come back from the flashback and Jim is snoring, he's falling asleep. But from here, we immediately go to the bean scene.
Mm-hmm.
How about some more beans, Mr. Taggart? I'd say you've had enough. I understand there's a new sheriff in town. Who wants to kill him?
And incredibly funny, has nothing, completely divorced from all of the societal stuff in the movie. And it's just mostly there to just make fun of the fact that people are always eating beans in Westerns, and to give us a chance to be introduced to Mongo.
Yeah. Mongo, who when I first saw that, I was like, that's Webster's dad, Alex Karras, former NFL football player. Again, this was I think, maybe his first film after coming out of the league. But a cartoon kind of brute, right? Like, like, you could easily see this guy like in a Looney Tunes cartoon.
Oh yeah, he's like 1 inch away from which way did he go, George?
Exactly.
It's that.
Yeah.
I mean, they show him lighting a cigar by literally sticking his face in a bonfire with it, and so we go to the sheriff's office. They're smoking weed. They get a note to the deputy Spade, which is pretty rough. And Jim says, "Hey, they'll never accept you no matter what you do." But Bart strolls into town, and We know there's going to be a confrontation soon. And this is where Bart walks out. He's sort of trying to meet and greet people, and we get the up yours moment from this lady.
Good morning, ma'am. And isn't it a lovely morning?
Up yours, nigger.
What did you expect? Welcome, Sonny. Make yourself at home. Marry my daughter. You've got to remember that these are just simple farmers. These are people of the land. The common clay of the New West. You know. Morons.
Yeah.
And I always felt bad for, not the character, but the actors. Like, could you imagine, like, oh, Grandma, what did you do on set today? Well, I had to say some stuff.
Right. Yeah, I wonder what that you know, I wonder what that contract was. You know, I think I've heard Mel Brooks talk, like Slim Pickens is like, man, I'm really saying some stuff I really abhor. You know, and I think like there were some other Western actors that were approached. I think John Wayne was approached to be in it, and he was just like, told Mel, he's like, I think this movie is incredible. I love it. I can't do it. You know, like, yeah.
I always wonder about any movie where that's a thing where, you know, like, again, like go to Django Unchained, like you imagine, like, does Leonardo DiCaprio have to turn to everybody and go like, listen,
well, he had,
it's on the page. I got to say it.
Well,
so,
he had,
sorry.
he had huge problems. I think Sam Jackson had talked to him, was like, yo, man, you're playing a part, you know, like,
we all get it. It's not real. You're okay. We're not mad at you. You know?
Totally.
But still, it's got to be awkward. Anyway, so, you know, after that, Jim goes back for some consolation after being told this by the old lady. And this is the scene that you mentioned where, like, yeah, that the thing where, the way Cleavon Little laughs in this, that feels so genuine because it is a genuine, like, on set moment of him busting up. But, like, that's, to me, that's almost the movie in a nutshell, that one moment.
Yeah, it is. It's, this is ultimately a movie about their friendship, right? Like, especially when you consider what happens at the end, it's these two outsiders, really, just being like, hey, all right, us against the world. It's a love story.
Yeah. And it's about to be them against Mongo, who now rides through town on an ox, which is a great thing. It just says yes or no on the ox's ass. I'm not even sure what that's supposed to mean. But he punches out a horse. I don't know how they do that humanely. I don't know what's going on there.
I don't know either. Talented stunt horse, I imagine.
Yeah. You hear someone yell, "Gottin' which is one of my favorite Yiddish words. You don't hear too often. Just sort of means like, you know, oh my God. But it's funny to me to hear it as a young Jew. Anyway, so someone tells Bart, you know, that this is happening. And I love that, like, after they report it, you hear him like, the fool's going to do it. You know?
Yeah.
You know, don't shoot him. You'll just make him mad.
Yeah, I love that. That'll just make him mad. And then, we get this. All right. How do I outsmart him? Candygram from Mongo. And that was the moment I fell in love with this movie.
Candygram from Mongo. Candygram from Mongo. Candygram from Mongo. Candygram from Mongo. Sign, please. Thank you.
Mongo like candy.
Once again, it's like we're not going to solve the problem straight up. We're going to solve the problem the way Wile E. Coyote might try to solve this problem. Right. And the exploding candygram, and they literally play, you know, that's all, folks. At the
and that's when I was like, oh, he's Bugs Bunny. So as a child, I was like, this, you know, it's he's the superhero now, right? Like he's transcended this kind of just cinematic reality for me at the time and became, oh, this is a hero. This is somebody who, like that child, play school, play yard kind of, I'm rubber, you're glue. Like, he can repel the most dangerous of attackers and bullies just by being smart and funny. And like that, I couldn't get enough of that. And the silly walk he does, and he fingers in the ear, and as I love candy, and then it explodes, and it's just like, that's another. I wonder how many people would get Looney Tunes humor today.
Yeah, with Looney Tunes not being as prevalent or watched anymore. I tried to make sure I showed my kids some solid Looney Tunes stuff. They took a lot of it off Max, which bothered me because they were really into it. They loved Duck Amuck. They loved the One Froggy Evening, like some of these classics that are a little harder for them to find. But they loved it. I'm like, oh, thank God I exposed them to that. They'll be glad they saw that later.
Yeah, Barbara of Seville is it's just like art. Like they all are, but like, I watched that one recently. I'm like, this is just incredible.
So we go to Headley. He's getting his bath from Taggart, and he's bummed that Mongo lost. And so he decides, okay, the beast failed. It's time to call in Beauty. And I just wanted to call out one little thing in this scene where he's obsessed that he's very sad he lost his little froggy toy.
Froggy. Yeah.
This is like a repeat of a bit from The Producers where Gene Wilder's character in that is like, he's like, my blanket, I need my blue blanket. Same bit. It's still funny. And so I love this scene where, so now he's back, Cleavon Little's back at work. Mongo is chained up and snoring, and people are starting to come in and give him some credit. This line I thought was very clever. He says, the bitch was inventing the candygram, and I won't even get credit.
Yeah.
I never noticed that line before, and I was like, oh, that stands out to me now. Like, yes, of course, someday someone's going to point out in Black History Month, the candygram was invented by,
And I probably won't even get the credit. It's a brilliant joke.
Yeah. And the old lady comes by and says, here's an apple pie, and sorry about the up yours.
Yeah.
Followed up with, you'll have the good taste not to mention that I spoke to you.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I wouldn't dare. Yeah. But Jim's still skeptical, right? He's like, well, in another 25 years, you can shake their hands in broad daylight.
Right. Those they're all like little, they're not, again, and I think a wise choice that Mel makes is like, those jokes aren't the point, but they are jabs that you will, like, they're going to land. You're going to think about them. But like, she brought the pie, and like Mongo is in chains, and, the candygram joke, and maybe I can shake their hands. Those things hit, but it's quick,
They're almost like, I look at them as like they're singles, right? They're not home runs, but they add up to a lot of runs in the aggregate.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we meet Lily von Stupp, and Headley brings her some flowers and gives her assignment to seduce and abandon the sheriff, which will apparently break him. And we did an episode on Clue already, but man, Madeline Kahn is just an all-time legend. So funny and just so effortlessly funny.
Effortlessly funny. Effortlessly beautiful. When she auditioned for this part, apparently, Mel, he's like, I'm sorry I have to do this in the audition. But, because he was, I think he was trying to channel Marlene Dietrich. And he was like, she was known for her legs. I have to see. I don't know. I know you as this funny comedian, Madeline. I don't know if you have the legs. And Madeline like showed him her legs, and he was like, okay, you got the part. Like, I only bring that up because she was this incredible package of musical talent, right? And comedic talent. And I think the reason her and Mel Brooks work so well and why they are both so funny is because they're musicians. You know, she was like a trained operatic singer, and he was a drummer. And musical timing with comedic timing is such an important, I think, like component in why they are so funny, right? Like why they are so like ahead of the pack in terms of like just effortlessly funny. And then on top of that, to be drop dead gorgeous. Like if you can't tell already, Madeline Kahn was a huge crush for me growing up.
I mean, it's sort of unfair that someone gets that many, dealt that many aces, to start with. It's kind of like, oh man. Yeah, what a great comedic career she left behind. So many wonderful performances. And this is again, we mentioned this before, but this is the point where we get I'm Tired, her saloon kind of burlesque number.
Here I stand, the goddess of desire, set men on fire. I have this power. Morning, noon, and night, it's drink and dancing, some quick romancing, and then a shower. Stage door Johnnies constantly surround me. They always hound me with one request. Who can satisfy their lustful habit? I'm not a rabbit. I need some rest. I'm tired, sick and tired of love. I've had my fill of love from below and above. Tired of being admired, tired of love uninspired. Let's face it, I'm tired. I've been with thousands of men again and again. They promise the moon. They're always coming and going and going and coming. And always too soon.
Which is like the opposite of a burlesque number because she is so just over it.
Yeah.
In a way that like I did not get the joke as a kid, and I certainly didn't get the 50 million double entendres inside this song as a kid. Like, oh, she's tired from below and above. I'm like, oh, because she's been
right.
Now I get it.
Yeah. It's I didn't understand that quite either. I will say though, the number, whoever choreographed it, it's incredible. Like, it's such a tight, they don't have a lot of space. And I think
it's a small stage, like physically.
Very small stage, and they do a lot with it in terms of the choreography of this number.
And then that one guy like comes up onto the stage and is like kind of harassing her, and she sort of just deftly kicks him aside.
Yeah.
But then the thing kind of, even when the number like gets like peppy and snappy.
Yeah.
And she's still just kind of like somehow she's still doing her routine against that. It's great.
Mm-hmm. It's a great, yeah. I'm sorry, continue.
No, it's okay, yeah. So Bart gets an invite to her dressing room, and she decides to slip into something a little more comfortable.
Yeah.
Wie geht's, meine Schatzi?
Far out.
For you.
Oh, a red rose. How romantic. Have a seat, Sheriff. Won't you excuse me for a moment while I slip into something a little bit more comfortable?
Bitte, baby.
Oh. Why don't you loosen your bullets? Ah, I feel refreshed. Isn't it bright in here? There. Isn't that better? Pardon me, I'll be back in a moment. God damn it.
How's it going?
It's like wet sauerkraut in my hands. By morning, he will be my slave.
Splendid. Just let me have a little feel.
Yeah. Where were we? Where are you? Oh yes. Let me sit down next to you. Tell me, Schatzi, is it true what they say about the way you people are gifted? Oh, it's true. It's true. It's true. It's true.
And this is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is the missing prior joke.
Yeah. So, the lights cut off and, Madeline Kahn's character, she says the line, it's true. And the joke that Pryor, I think, had that the line got cut was, lady, that's my arm.
Yeah, you're sucking on my arm.
Right. Yes. I wasn't gonna go as graphic, but yeah, that was the line, and yeah, I wish they kept that in. I think it's such I think it goes with the thesis of the film that Bart isn't. He's not what you. This stereotype, He's human. He's a person, and of course, like she falls head over heels for him. And
right,
I think
the plan backfires spectacularly. Right. She wants him.
Right.
He's having some Schnitzelgruben the next morning, and he's like, "Please, I'm not from Havana."
Yeah.
You're making a German spectacle of yourself.
15 is my limit on Schnitzelgruben. Bitter, baby, bitter. So smooth, Cleavon.
Yeah. And I love that, like, her last line is he, like, finally, like, leaves. He's, what a nice guy.
Yeah.
Perfect capstone to this whole, like, little arc of the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, right? Like, he's not a stereotype. It is interesting they cut that joke, and it's almost like, why is this a bridge too far, given what's in the rest of the movie?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, and I don't know the answer to it. But, I always, that was... If there's one regret I have, if there's one note I have in the film, it's like, oh, leave that punchline in. I think it adds so much more dimension.
So it's the next morning. Cleavon comes back. There's a writ for Mongo's release from Headley. And so they throw some water on him and he just rips the chains off as if they were nothing, which is great. But Mongo doesn't want to go. He just knows he's only a pawn in game of life. So the plan is to go snoop on the railroad,
right?
Which they do. They make their way back, and they see Charlie and all of the other guys there. And he says, "You were hung," and they were right. Which is great. So McTaggart comes up, and Bart kind of big times him, and they decide, well, should we kill him? And Jim says no, but Jim shoots all of the guns out of their hands with his magic, bullet tricks and stuff. I don't know what else to call that, but his superpower.
Fastest hand. Yeah, his fastest hand. He's like the Flash. It's insane.
Right. So Headley has Lily tied up, and she says, you'll need an army to stop him. And he says, yes, I'm going to get an army of the worst dregs. So we see this, like, everyone's leaving Rock Ridge. There's signs that say help wanted, villains to destroy Rock Ridge. And they have 24 hours to save the town. And I love this, like, villain meeting that they have, like this recruitment. So you see, like, yes, there's a bunch of, like, Western villains, but then there's, like, Nazis and bikers and stuff.
Yeah.
I believe Mel Brooks is one of these guys, too. Like, there's, like, as a cameo.
I wouldn't, I think you're right.
Yeah, blink and you'll miss it.
But it's another great cartoon bit, from badges. We don't need those stinking badges, and you go down the line. I think they're like nuns with bats. I don't know if I'm making that up, but like it's and I love the speech that Hetty gives before we get to the scene of, he goes through that, nitwits, dimwits.
Taggart. Yes, sir?
I've decided to launch an attack that will reduce Rock Ridge to ashes.
What do you want me to do, sir?
I want you to round up every vicious criminal and gunslinger in the West. Take this down. I want rustlers, cutthroats, murderers, bounty hunters, desperados, mugs, pugs, thugs, nitwits, halfwits, dimwits, vipers, snipers, con men, Indian agents, Mexican bandits, muggers, buggerers, bushwhackers, hornswagglers, horse thieves, bull dykes, train robbers, bank robbers, ass kickers, shit kickers, and Methodists.
Could you repeat that, sir?
Like, he's just rolling, and like, you know, Harvey Korman is such a incredible performer. If you've seen the Carol Burnett show, you've seen Harvey Korman. Like, him and Tim Conway were just hilarious on that show, and Tim Conway was always making Harvey Korman break, you know. But he's great in this, and I love this scene. And the guy's chewing the gum, and he's going down his credentials, and, you know, arson, rape, you know, and assault, rape. You said rape twice.
I said rape twice.
I like rape, you know, and it's just like, again, these are like jokes that I feel like now people would be like, you know, clutching their pearls and you know.
Well, that's to say nothing of the next joke, which is how they're going to infiltrate this, where they walk up to the KKK and...
Boy, is he strict.
Gotta get in there closer and find out what's happening.
There's our ticket.
Hey, boys! Look what I got here! Hey, where are the white women at?
Right.
Holy shit, is that like a 50 megaton nuclear bomb of a joke?
That would still be a 50 megaton nuclear bomb of a joke. Still today.
Right.
All the jokes in this movie still play today. And that joke, you know, I saw this when it came, you know, when Gene Wilder died and was in the theater, and that line, the audience, it was packed. The audience exploded because it's such a real line, you know, and in these times we're still living in, it's still such a contentious live wire. Like, excuse me while I put this out, right? Like, the two were connected. And yeah, it's to do that for the Klan and then to dress like the Klan, and on the back of their hoods and their robes, they have smiley faces that say, "Have a nice day." And yeah, it's such a insight into the soul of this country in that joke. To me, I really feel like, yeah, if I had to show aliens like some like small clips from movies, and I can only pick one clip, that would be the clip from this movie I would show aliens. You know, like, it says a lot about who we are.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much wrapped up in that one line. Again, it's, you know, it is all of the funniness of Mel Brooks and this group and Cleavon Little somehow managing to like kind of laugh through like some of the darkest shit possible.
Yeah. And the way he delivers that line, you know, he delivers it like he's this crazy, wild, like he becomes the stereotype that everybody assumes he was. Like, that's the checkmate of that joke is it is the everything that everyone was afraid of is in
this
that
will work
joke.
Because this is what they think of me.
Right. This is what they think of me. Like Gene Wilder, "Hey boys." And, you know, he says it and he's like this wild animal. And of course they turn and like, you know, but that's what the people of folk of Rock Ridge thought was coming. And I assume audience at the time, that's what they thought. Like, you know, who is this guy that's the lead of this film? Oh, he's not that at all. That doesn't actually exist. You know, like,
right.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, just well-planted joke.
Well, and they follow it up with this other joke, which is of a piece with it, where he, you know, they're caught and they got to run, and he says, "Well, now for my next impression, Jesse Owens." They could have said any runner. They didn't pick just any runner. They picked the black runner who made Hitler cry.
Right.
So, again, like similar kind of vibe to that. So Jim and Bart tell Charlie to grab some lumber and paint and meet them near Rock Ridge. And he leads the entire railroad team down to Rock Ridge to meet with the townsfolk and explains his plan. We are going to build a duplicate Rock Ridge as a decoy. Mm-hmm. And they're like, and the townsfolk are like, well, we don't have the time or manpower. And he says, well, wrong. We do, because we have all these guys now. And they'll help us in return for a little land to homestead. And I think, what do they say? We'll give the land to the N-words and the Chinese, again, slurs, but not the Irish. Okay. Problem solved.
It's like, we got to have somebody to hate.
Yeah.
I even love before they get there, though, like he invokes when they're like telling him, nah, we can't do it. You do it for Randolph Scott. And everyone takes that Randolph Scott, right? Like, it was like, I get another Western veteran of the screen, silver screen. And I think I love that they invoke like that false sense of patriotism. It's again, like Mel is shooting on all cylinders here. Like, and anyway, that was my anecdote.
Yes. And we have the priest there who says, God, do we have the strength or are we just jerking off? It's really funny. And I would point out this guy plays the priest again in Spaceballs. He's yeah. So another guy Mel loves to use. I was going to mention when you talked about this idea of, we got to have somebody to hate. Have you ever heard the Tom Lehrer song, National Brotherhood Week?
I don't believe I have.
Oh, shit. Okay. Well, I got one for you then. You know who Tom Lehrer was?
No.
Oh, okay. So Tom Lehrer was a guy, he was actually a Harvard math professor, but he was a gifted pianist and he wrote really funny songs. And this is one of the guys that like Weird Al would cite.
Oh, I know. I know. Yes.
Did, Poisoning Pigeons in the Park, the Masochism Tango. If you know that song where he sings all the chemical elements, that's him.
Yes. I've heard that song. I know who he is now.
Okay. He has one called National Brotherhood Week, which was to poke fun at this real thing that was, I guess put out there for a while. We're gonna have National Brotherhood Week, and the song goes, was it the white folks hate the black folks and the black folks hate the white folks, to hate all but the right folks, it's American as apple pie, but during National Brotherhood Week, and it's the whole joke is like, how we all hate each other, but for 1 week we're gonna pretend to be nice,
right?
But it does end with, I think, was it the Protestants hate the Catholics, and the Catholics hate the Protestants, and the Hindus hate the Muslims, and everybody hates the Jews. But during, it's pretty funny, but again, dark. So just a similar vibe. So I'll throw that out there. All right, so we go to the fake Rock Ridge, and everybody is integrated and standing shoulder to shoulder. Everybody's friends now, and they're doing a happy dance. And this is when I think the villains are told to embark on a great crusade to curtail unchecked decency.
Right.
Men, you are about to embark on a great crusade to stamp out runaway decency in the West. Now you will only be risking your lives, whilst I will be risking an almost certain Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. Now raise your right hand for the pledge. Right! Now repeat after me. I. Your name. Schmucks. Pledge allegiance. To Headley Lamar. That's Headley. And to the evil. For which he stands. Now go do that voodoo that you do so well.
And off we go. So this is when things get real weird.
Yes.
We start with some Looney Tunes stuff. So there's like a toll booth.
Yeah, somebody has to go back and get a shitload of dimes.
Yes, really funny. And so they ride into the fake town, and they start to realize that, like, the plan is they're all going to ride in the fake town. Jim's going to blow up all the dynamite that's hidden around the fake town, and they'll all be killed, all the bad guys.
Yeah.
Jim is having trouble shooting the dynamite from his vantage point. The goons discover the town is a fake, which is when Jim starts setting off the explosions. And now we get to like true pandemonium. Like we've got like the prospector blowing death breath at people. Lily is just singing with a group of Germans.
Yeah. It's so great.
Yeah. And now we pull out the camera to show it is a fake rock ridge, but it's on a studio lot in the 20th century. Yes. And this is where, like, not only do we break the fourth wall, we like just dissolve it with acid.
Yes. And this is when we bust in to Buddy Bazaar's The French Mistake. Yes.
Throw out your hands, stick out your tush, hands on your hips, give them a push. You'll be surprised you're doing the French mistake. Voila!
All right, cut! Wrong! Okay, just watch me. It's so simple, you sissy Marys. Give me the playback and watch me faggot.
Throw out your hands, stick out your tush, hands on your hips, give them a push. You'll be surprised you're doing the French mistake. Voila!
Shit. Have you got it?
Yes.
Sounds like steam escaping. Action! Okay. Oh, wait till I get out. Wait till I get out. Okay. Playback!
Throw out your hands, stick out your tush, hands on your hips, give them a push.
Cut! What in the hell do you think you're doing here? This is a closed set.
Piss on you. I'm working for Mel Brooks.
Not in the face.
Put out your hips. And like, so now we've gone from making jokes about race relations in America to now talking about queer identity and, homosexual identity. And we're encroaching in that humor space now. And it's just like, again, fearless as fuck.
Yeah, I mean, and this is where we've gone like full duck amuck, because now the movie has essentially spilled out of its reality and into ours. And like, I love this line from Taggart. He's like, "Piss on you. I'm working for Mel Brooks."
Yeah.
Come on, girls. And, everybody's fighting. We go into like the studio cafeteria.
Right. Yeah.
Right. There's like a pie fight in the studio cafeteria. We see like they kind of like mess up the studio tour, and Headley tries to like sneak his way out of this by like grabbing a cab, and he says, "Drive me off this picture."
Yeah.
Like literally drive me out of the movie. And Bart pursues him on a horse to Grauman's Chinese Theater, where Blazing Saddles is showing at the movies.
Yeah. But first Headley gets some he gets some Juju fruits.
Mm-hmm.
Junior mints, Juju fruits, and like he's sitting and enjoying the picture, which Mel Brooks has done that. He does it again in Spaceballs. Slightly different when they take the VHS and like,
this is now. Is it? What are we watching? Yeah.
Now.
That whole bit.
When did that happen? We just missed it. When? Now. Like it's anyway.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thinking that Mel Brooks can do. It's truly brilliant. It's truly like folding the reality inside of itself and playing with time and reality. I love it.
Yeah. It is like the apotheosis of the way this movie has already been kind of dealing with Looney Tunes stuff. But I was thinking about this because this was the thing when I was a kid. I was like, well, this is unsatisfying because yes, we get the shootout with Headley here and Bart wins. But like narratively, it like makes no sense. And so as a kid, I was like, what's the deal with this? Why? And I finally kind of figured it out as I got older, which is like, this whole movie is about trying to solve racism in America, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The only way you can solve racism in America within the confines of this movie is to literally just go, yada, 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 craziness, and then, hey, everybody's happy, right? Like, it is itself saying, like, this is seemingly impossible, and you can't simply just resolve it that easily.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I would also say that this film, racism is an invention. It's a byproduct of the necessity to justify chattel slavery, right? And the dehumanization of that chattel, which is, so like, how do we keep this capitalistic gravy train going? Well, we have to dehumanize these people and put in our national myth their dehumanization and at the same time uplift our kind of myth about who we are, right? Like, and I'm saying in quotation marks, like, white people. And the thing that I think that's brilliant about Blazing Saddles is cinema is about myth making. And the biggest myth in cinema for so many years is the Western, which is about manifest destiny and about, like, almost the godly right by might, to take land and to expand. And so if that's our reality, and then to use that, right, as the reality of this film, and then to break it, to have the main character, the myth and the bullshit of the myth is so dense, it breaks the film and spills out into the streets, literally, where we all live. And where do we go to enjoy this bullshit myth? The theater. But guess what? We got to bring it home. We got to bring it home to y'all. And this guy's got to be the hero there. He's got to be the hero in the streets in front of a movie theater. And so he and his friend cannot just ride into the sunset, but they ride in the sunset in a limousine, right? Like, safe away from this, what would typically be really heavy shit. It's a real, and that's why I'm like, yeah, this is like not just an anti-racist film, it's an anti-war film. War with ourselves, war with the myth of who we are. Like, that myth perpetuates destruction and suffering. This belief that we deserve more. We have been blessed and bestowed with more humanity than someone else, more rights than someone else. It's bullshit. And it's going to lead to chaos. It's going to spill out into the streets until we literally throw a fucking pie in its face, right? Like, that's what this movie is to me.
Yeah, and you that's a perfect way to talk about kind of that last scene of the movie where, he's like, well, my work is done here. I'm going to go wherever I'm needed, wherever outlaws rule the West. It's the most artificial feeling scene in the movie.
Gee, I sure hope there's a happy ending. I love a happy ending.
Sheriff, you can't go now. We need you.
The work here is done. I'm needed elsewhere now. I'm needed wherever outlaws rule the West, wherever innocent women and children are afraid to walk the streets, wherever a man cannot live in simple dignity, and wherever a people cry out for justice.
Bullshit!
All right, you caught me. Speak the plain truth. It's getting pretty damn dull around here.
Good luck, Bart, and God bless you. Oh, Bart! Bye, baby bro.
Keep the faith, brothers!
Where are you headed, cowboy?
Nowhere special.
Nowhere special. I always wanted to go there.
Come on.
Right? It's like, and by design, right? You're supposed to go like, that's not how this works, right? Like Bart, I'm Shane or whatever. I'm just going to ride off. And this whole concept of, it's almost a little bit of Grapes of Wrath too. Like, wherever there's someone goes hungry, I'll be there. And
yeah.
And we're supposed to feel how artificial that is. And it's kind of funny that, of course, they take the piss out of it by having him go like, well, all right, it's just dull here. I want to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Where are you headed? Nowhere special. I always wanted to go there. Like, yeah. Wouldn't that be nice to go where, nowhere special? Actually sounds kind of a relief.
Yeah.
And so they ride off in a limo, as you said. That's the end of the movie.
Yeah.
There is a real interesting poetry to this. And I think of so many movies I've seen that are about racial injustice that play it, straight up, right? Not just black on white racial injustice, but, every race under the sun. There's probably a movie that you can find about like, look, here we've dramatized the suffering of this group at the hands of the other group, right?
Yeah.
And somehow for me, this film tops all of them. It punches harder, even as it is, hitting you on the other side with fart jokes and Looney Tunes stuff. Somehow that makes all of this stuff hit, you stack this up against 1,000 Amistads and Schindler's List. Like it's just, there's something more powerful about this to me.
Yeah. It's incredibly, again, when I saw this in the theater, I came away with such a feeling of, I remember literally feeling, not to be too hyperbolic, but like almost walking on clouds with the sense of brotherhood, Mel gets very sentimental in the shots when they are preparing and building the town, and then they're all looking upon the town and this plan that's come together and they built, and the camera pans across each face and like see like the diversity of the town and the people who've helped, and like it's the one moment that the movie's not really telling a joke. And I think like it's kind of Mel's ideal of like what this country is, what he fought for. He disarmed bombs in World War II and mines, right? Like, and to come back with this optimistic sense of humor. Like Mel is, the reason I would also agree, like, yeah, he's definitely one of the funniest people who's ever lived, bar none. And I would say also because his humor is so optimistic. It's so optimistic. It's so filled about like, smile, because, the sun's going to come up again, like it's could be a corny platitude to somebody else, but to me, that shit's really deep and heavy.
No, it's incredibly hopeful and empathetic. Because, I think I'm going to butcher the quote from him, but he said something, I think this is when he was talking about the producers, and saying, what could I do to, basically fight against a Nazi? Well, I can make you laugh at him. It's the most brutal thing I can do, right? Is to make him laughable. And he does that again. He does that in the producers, but this is much more of a laser targeted, version of that.
Yeah.
And it is so effective that like, you can't help to go like, yeah, no, I want to be on the side of Bart and Jim. I don't want to be on the other side of that, and it makes it so it seems that what works about it is that he makes this, what should obviously be, dare I say, self-evident truth.
Yeah.
He makes it self-evident. He makes this like very obvious, like, of course, bigotry is fucking stupid.
Yeah.
How much more plain can you be than that?
Right.
So yeah, it is so potent a movie. Still 50 years later.
It's very clear-eyed. It's not, the mission is not muddied at all. They know exactly who the targets are. They know exactly the direction, the moral direction of the film. And so, I don't want to be too cynical and say that a film like this couldn't be made today, but I do think like that direction, that moral clarity, that comedic clarity tied with the what's the opposite of economical? Kind of like
that's a Jeopardy question I'm failing right now.
Right. Well, just kind of the sprawling cartoonishness that this film takes liberties with, right? Like, just like, yeah, we're going to be silly, and we are going to take time to put a toll booth in the middle of this vast desert. And like, all these cowboys are going to have to line up in single file with a shitload of dimes. Like, to me, that's like, there's not just a love and a clarity, but there's a patience that I'm like, if you were going to try to attempt to do something on that level today, those would be the things you would, I think, have to be a must. The clarity and the patience and the love of humanity. Like, even the villains are like, you come away loving Harvey Korman and Eddie Lamar. And, Taggart, as racist as he is, Slim Pickens is hilarious in that movie. Everybody gets some love.
The film really is miraculous. I can't think of a better word for it, because of how it puts all of these disparate elements together. And again, like you said, it just has lost none of its power in all these decades. So, man, I'm really glad we got to talk about this one tonight. This is a special movie, and I'm glad we did this.
So am I.
Yeah. All right. Tarik, if people want to find your stuff, where do they find it?
You find me on social medias, on the social medias. My name is Tarik R. Davis, at Tarik R. Davis. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, on TikTok. And I'll be making announcements soon about the screening of my short you brought up, Doc, Race, Revolution, Relativity, and the Confessions of a Time-Traveling Terrorist. Watch this space for more updates about that. We'll be screening in Austin soon, and doing a screening here in New York and hopefully in LA as well. So keep an ear out about that.
Awesome. If you have thoughts on this episode and our recent ones, which include, if I've done this right, because I'm recording this real far in advance, I believe last was our double feature on The Wizard and Super Mario Brothers 3. Before that would have been, let's see, Dazed and Confused was in the mix there. We did favorite TV theme songs, Monty Python's Flying Circus, lots of fun shit. And coming up after this, I think, if things go according to plan, we've got an episode on Three Ninjas in the pipeline. And we're going to do one on just ranking our favorite 90s movies. That's going to be a two-parter. Split into the two halves of the decade, so that'll be fun as well, so keep a lookout for that. So if you have thoughts on those things, send them to our social media portals, which are, there's links to them in the show notes, but we're on Twitter, Threads, Instagram, and BlueSky, and I'm also on TikTok just fucking around doing impressions, because I like to. So that's all there. If you have the time and you're so inclined, please do drop the show or a review wherever you found it. That's really helpful for the show's visibility. So just take a little time and put a couple of stars there, however many you feel are appropriate, but preferably the max. Anyway, but put something there. Spend the time. I appreciate it. And Tarik, if there's any guy who's going to write a movie that is a spiritual successor to this, it's you, and I'd love to see it.
Oh, wow. That is high praise and a challenge if everyone was dropped. But I feel very flattered.
Also, you have 20 days to do it.
I am very flattered and honored that you say something like that, man. Thank you.
Man, great having you here as always. So until next time, that is one more entry in the Nostalgium Arcana.
Oh, the white folks hate the black folks, and the black folks hate the white folks. To hate all but the right folks is an old established rule, but during National Brotherhood Week, Lena Horne and Sheriff Clark are dancing cheek to cheek. It's fun to eulogize the people you despise, as long as you don't let them in your school. Oh, the poor folks hate the rich folks, and the rich folks hate the poor folks. All of my folks hate all of your folks. It's American as apple pie. But during National Brotherhood Week, New York Yorkers love the Puerto Ricans 'cause it's very chic. Step up and shake the hand of someone you can't stand. You can tolerate him if you try.